And you men are brave, but they had to use our military.
The most widely circulated and sensational event across major social media platforms in the past 2 days has been the argument video featuring Ukrainian President Zelensky, former President Trump, and Vice President Vance at the White House. It all started in the final 9 minutes of their press conference at the White House. The video shows that Zelensky took the initiative to bring up a topic, attempting to refute Vance's description of Trump's authority in foreign affairs, and implying that Trump had failed to deter Putin during his first term. In front of numerous media reporters, Zelensky directly told Vance that his views were wrong, and argued that the U.S. government's diplomatic strategy would not work. These statements were clearly provocative, an offense, and highly inappropriate. This altered what was initially a harmonious atmosphere, prompting necessary responses from both Trump and Vance. Looking back, Trump's commitment to bringing an end to the Russia-Ukraine conflict and restoring peace was a key promise during last year's election. It is also a genuine aspiration of his, to save the young and vibrant lives in Ukraine and Russia from the horrors of war and death. Trump stated that approximately 2,000 people still die on the battlefield every week. At the same time, he aims to stop America's financial hemorrhaging and end the wasteful expenditure on massive aid packages. Instead, he advocates for peace and reconstruction, jointly developing rare earth minerals to benefit all parties. This very aspiration has driven Trump's foreign policy team, led by Vance, to engage in diplomatic mediation between Russia and Ukraine, achieving positive progress. Zelensky's visit was a concrete manifestation of these diplomatic efforts. The original plan was to sign the bilateral rare earth minerals agreement at the White House, a deal that promised a win-win scenario, especially as the agreement specifically included the eastern regions of Ukraine, carefully designed as part of the post-ceasefire arrangements. The agreement had already been negotiated, awaiting its official signing at the White House. However, the unexpected argument disrupted this plan. In fact, this outcome was not entirely surprising. Given Zelensky's past behavior, ceasefire and peace are clearly not his top priorities. More precisely, he has preconditions that must be met before he agrees to a ceasefire. As Trump put it, Zelensky seeks to use U.S. support to strengthen himself and continue the war, whereas the Trump administration's goal in aiding Ukraine is to achieve an immediate ceasefire, not to provide leverage for Zelensky to prolong the conflict. This is the fundamental divergence between the two sides. Interestingly, after being expelled from the White House due to his offensive behavior, Zelensky immediately accepted an interview with Fox News, and on the same day, flew to London to sign a $3.3 billion loan agreement with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer for Ukraine's military development. As a result, some commentators believe that Zelensky deliberately disrupted the negotiations. The signing of the rare earth minerals agreement could have been completed a week earlier, and it was Zelensky who actively requested and repeatedly urged for this meeting with Trump at the White House. While reactions across the U.S. vary, public opinion overwhelmingly supports Trump. Congressman Mark Green stated, "President Trump offered Ukraine a win-win deal, providing America with security assurances, reconstruction funds, and rare earth minerals." However, Zelensky walked into the Oval Office and disrespected the President of the United States. Well, guess what? The era of blank checks is over. A 50-50 revenue split in the agreement is incredibly generous. No mining company or its investors would make such a deal. Most mining companies take 90%, with governments receiving only 10%. Trump proposed an exceptional deal that could have realistically ended the war, death, and destruction. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Miller criticized Zelensky for being unreasonable in the meeting, saying, he emphasized how much help Europe has given him. If he thinks Europe is so strong, then why come to the U.S. to beg for aid and security guarantees? Miller asserted that Trump's priority is to end the Russia-Ukraine war as quickly as possible and save lives. Just like during his first presidential term, Trump is a peacemaker. Today at the White House meeting, Trump demonstrated to America and the world that he is a strong leader. However, Zelensky showed no appreciation. He came to seek help from the U.S. yet acted arrogantly, lecturing the U.S. president. What an absolute miscalculation. The nature of the Russia-Ukraine war has been a topic of heated debate since the conflict began. To gain perspective, let's revisit former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's view on the matter. At the end of 2024, in a media interview, Johnson openly admitted that the war against Russia was a proxy war. He stated, "To be honest, we are fighting a proxy war. We are fighting this proxy war but have not provided our proxies with the ability to complete the mission. For years we have forced them to fight with one hand tied behind their back. This approach is cruel, extremely cruel. Now we need to give them everything they need, and we must do so." Looking back to March 29, 2022, just a month after the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine war, peace talks were held in Istanbul under Turkey's mediation. These negotiations took place after Russia partially withdrew from northern Ukraine, easing military pressure around Kyiv. However, shortly after these talks, on April 9, Boris Johnson made a sudden visit to Kyiv, becoming the first foreign leader to do so after the Russian withdrawal. He openly supported Ukraine's continued resistance and promised increased military aid. According to Ukrainian negotiator David Arakamia's recollections in 2023, Johnson told Zelensky not to rush into signing any agreement with Russia. He suggested, "Let's keep fighting," arguing that any deal with Putin could be perceived as a Russian victory and set a precedent for future aggression. The Russian side has since repeatedly claimed that Johnson's intervention directly led to Ukraine abandoning the peace talks. Putin has publicly accused the West, particularly Johnson, of sabotaging the peace process. International opinion widely holds that Johnson played a crucial role in breaking down the Istanbul negotiations. As a prominent European political figure advocating for Zelensky and Ukraine to keep fighting, his stance represents a broader, albeit less publicly discussed sentiment. The true instigators of this proxy war are the deep state. This concept has existed for a long time, but since Trump's return to power, it has become a widely acknowledged issue rather than just a so-called conspiracy theory. During Biden's 4 years in office, people have vivid memories of the corruption and absurdity among the left-wing politicians supported by the deep state. If the 2020 U.S. election could be manipulated by the deep state, then it is not surprising that they would also deliberately provoke the Russia-Ukraine war to achieve their goals. Russia possesses vast land, abundant resources, particularly energy and minerals, and holds a strategically vital position bordering Europe while also neighboring Asia's economic powerhouses, China, Japan, and South Korea. Whoever controls these resources has the potential to dominate the world. Despite the Soviet Union's collapse in the early 1990s, NATO's eastward expansion never ceased. Why? If Biden's rise to power is seen as the pinnacle of the deep state, a rampant left-wing force in American and European politics, then deliberately instigating a war to weaken and dismantle Russia is not something difficult to comprehend. Ukraine, in fact, serves as the ideal strategic fulcrum for implementing such a plan. In reality, since the color revolution in Ukraine in 2014, the power struggle between the United States, Europe, Russia, and China has already begun, and the Russo-Ukrainian war that erupted in 2022 is merely a continuation of this process. During this period, every Ukrainian leader who came to power has oscillated between the two major camps of the US and Russia. Earlier Ukrainian governments even sold nearly all of the military-industrial technology left behind by the Soviet Union to China. The majority of the population in eastern Ukraine is ethnic Russian, and without their support, Zelensky's election would have been nearly impossible. Improving neighborly relations with Russia was a promise he made during his campaign. However, once in office, Zelensky's actions starkly contradicted his earlier pledges. Who has the capability to influence and manipulate all of this behind the scenes? If viewed as a de facto proxy in the war, from the perspective of personal power composition, Zelensky was the democratically elected president of Ukraine before the war, with elections suspended in Ukraine during wartime. In the external environment of the international community, his primary supporters are, on one hand, the Biden administration from the Democratic Party, and on the other, left-wing politicians from the European Union. Now, the rapidly shifting reality is this. Of the two external pillars supporting Zelensky, one is gone, Biden lost, Trump won, and the other is weakening, the rapid rise of the European right wing. Specifically, Trump has vowed to stop aid to Ukraine, refusing to bankroll regional conflicts. Even Europe's future defense will be self-funded, as the US government will no longer foot the bill. America will now focus on strengthening homeland defense and military presence in the Asia-Pacific region to counter its greatest adversary, the Chinese Communist Party. This means that the Russia-Ukraine war, as a localized conflict in Europe, is becoming significantly less important to the United States. The Trump administration is taking the lead and aims to resolve the conflict as soon as possible. Zelensky is clearly unwilling to accept his marginalization. Previously, he had repeatedly expressed dissatisfaction with the Trump team for speaking with Putin without his permission, not only demanding to be included in the conversation but also insisting that the US must consult him before reaching any agreement with Russia. This reflects his concerns about his future position. The Ukrainian ambassador to the US doesn't know either. Face-covered person. After the White House argument incident, President Trump made a statement explicitly highlighting this fundamental disagreement. We had a very meaningful meeting in the White House today. Much was learned that could never be understood without conversation under such fire and pressure. It's amazing what comes out through emotion. And I have determined that President Zelensky is not ready for peace if America is involved, because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage, I want peace. He disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he is ready for peace. Trump and Vance's actions have received widespread praise from various sectors of society. Congresswoman Mary Miller stated, "What has happened in Ukraine is a travesty. Joe Biden threw gas on the fire. Ukraine lost an entire generation and Americans hundreds of billions in tax dollars. We thank God for giving us strong leadership. Thank you POTUS and VP for putting America's interests first and working to end this terrible war." Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has just issued a statement strongly supporting President Trump. "Thank you, President Trump. Thank you for your unwavering leadership in standing up for the interests of the American people and peace. What you said is absolutely true. Zelensky has been trying to drag the United States into a nuclear war with Russia WW3 for years now, and no one has called him on it. Thank you, Vice President Vance, for speaking out so forcefully and clearly about the necessity of diplomacy." Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán also issued a statement after President Trump's meeting with Zelensky. "The strong create peace, while the weak provoke war." Today, President Trump has bravely defended peace, even though this may be difficult for many to accept. Thank you, Mr. President. Even Senator Lindsey Graham, one of Zelensky's strongest supporters, expressed his disapproval of his behavior. Zelensky's performance in the Oval Office today was terrible. "I have never been more proud of President Trump than I am now, because he has shown the American people and the world that you cannot play games with this man." Meanwhile, Zelensky is facing widespread criticism from American public opinion. Senator Lindsey Graham stated, "To the people of Ukraine, if Zelensky can take you where you want to go with the United States, he must either completely change, or you need to find someone new." The latest polls also show that the American public is growing tired of Zelensky. Feb 2022 versus Feb 2025. The percentage of people who believe the U.S. is doing too much has risen from 7% in 2022 to 41% this year. Among Republicans, this figure exceeds 60%. Meanwhile, trust in Zelensky has dropped from 72% in 2022 to 48% today. And this downward trend continues. Zelensky's move has even sparked a storm in Ukraine, with Ukrainian MP Oleksandr Dubinsky calling for an emergency session of parliament to impeach President Volodymyr Zelensky. Sources reveal that Zelensky desperately pleaded with the United States for more funding, only to face a harsh reality check from the Make America Great Again, MAGA movement. This scene exposed the fragile nature of his administration, which is on the brink of collapse. Dubinsky, the MP sanctioned by the Biden administration for exposing the truth, bluntly stated that Zelensky's leadership is a fraud. Whether facing Russia or the new hardline U.S. government, he is completely incompetent. Discussions on social media platform X have been heated, making this event a major signal that the globalist puppet is about to lose control. Loyalty to Zelensky is wavering in Kyiv, and insiders reveal that his core team is scrambling to salvage their reputation in response to the impending political storm. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt stated, "Zelensky refuses to recognize the practical reality of this war. It has been going on for years, his countrymen are dying, and the people who have been funding this effort, the American people, are sick and tired of footing this bill." The future of Trump and Zelensky U.S. Public opinion generally believes that Trump's actions in this event have allowed him to break free from the previous weak image of President Biden, insisting on putting America first. "We believe that the process of a ceasefire in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, led by the Trump administration, may face some setbacks but will continue. There is also significant potential for cooperation between the U.S. and Russia, including joint development of rare earth resources. During this process, Zelensky's public opinion and space for activities will be further compressed by the facts." The latest news is that House Speaker Johnson and President Trump want to conduct a comprehensive audit of all U.S. funds provided to Ukraine, investigating the quantity and specific flow of aid. Zelensky previously mentioned that over $100 billion of the $170 billion in aid to Ukraine is unaccounted for. In other words, Zelensky, as a party involved or even an informed party, despite widespread support from European Union leaders, will see his power base severely shaken if his ties to the Biden administration and corruption rumors are verified. During this period, although the Russia-Ukraine war continues, its scale will not expand, due to Putin's interest in building good mutual trust with the Trump administration. Russian military power may not necessarily increase further, but the Ukrainian army's combat effectiveness will continuously decline due to the U.S. cutting off military aid. If a major military defeat occurs, it will mean the end of Zelensky's hero status and political career. We will continue to follow and closely monitor the situation. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time.